All right, Harry. You know in the Bible that we have 66 books, right? And our favorites for sure are the Gospels. We got Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But today we're just going to do a comparison of those Gospels and details and the minor details of who they are and what they were trying to accomplish when they preached the message about Jesus. So let's start with the Gospel of Matthew. Maybe you can explain that for us. Go ahead, Harry.
Okay, we start with the author. Okay, so the author of Matthew is a man that's known as Matthew or Levi in the Gospels. He was a tax collector by trade before Jesus called him. So that wasn't real popular with the Jewish people. The corruption was supposedly part of it, but that's always an opinion. So what is nice? So, anyways, he was raised a Jew. Jesus, so he actually describes the Bible or the Gospel from a Jewish perspective. So that was his reference point. He starts with a bit of a Christmas story, tells about the birth of Jesus and Joseph and Mary, particularly that part, and then Herod trying to kill the babies, about Jesus going to Egypt and then coming back. And that's really the details there. But the main thing that I like about the Gospel of Matthew is that he doesn't look at the gospel as being a new religion. It's the fulfillment of the Old Testament and how important that is. So Jesus is the Messiah that everybody's been looking for throughout history. And so from Moses on, this was even before Moses, but so Moses' teaching evolves into the new covenant, and the Messiah has come and has gone, and now he's telling people that this is what the opportunity is. The Sermon on the Mount is also a prime piece of real estate here, like Matthew 5, 6, and 7 is kind of the Coles Notes of the Word of God. Like I really think that's a special part. He also goes into the crucifixion in detail, and the reason is he wants to point out it wasn't Pilate that killed Jesus, it was the Jews, the Jewish leadership. And that is important for them to understand. And they had washed their hands, so they weren't responsible. But then it was really nice at Pentecost how Peter says, but there's an off-ramp for you and your children. Right. So they had accepted the responsibility, and Matthew made that clear to them. He also had the guard at the tomb, which also proves that Jesus was risen. That's really special. So those are kind of the main things. Any thoughts there, Justin?
Yeah, like I said, the core foundation of like you already touched on the Sermon on the Mount. It's beautiful. I love it. It's always good to go to that aspect and test yourselves to see like how do I fit into each teaching of Jesus and where do I qualify into that. But the next gospel we have is the Gospel of Luke, right, Harry? Who is Luke? Mark. Who is Mark? And maybe some more information about him.
Yeah, Mark is actually, it would seem like he was likely a teenager, maybe 17, 18, when Jesus was crucified. He was at the scene and likely in the Garden of Gethsemane, but that's not the real point. The point is he loved the Lord. He was close to the disciples. And we read that Paul, on his first missionary journey, took him along. And then on the second missionary journey, Paul was hesitant, so Barnabas went with Mark and they headed out. And Paul talks highly of him over the years afterwards. He was very involved in the gospel. Him and Timothy and Titus, they were all central to the gospel himself. So he was younger. He was likely the first to write a gospel, as history teaches, and it's a short book. He wrote a kind of a condensed version, and the others kind of elaborated on that and filled in the rest of the story, so to speak. So a simple, clear read. Your thoughts?
I was just going to ask one question. I know that we hear this understanding that he might have been related to Peter. Is that correct?
Might have been, yeah, but a nephew or something. But he was spiritually related to them all real close.
Yeah, amen. That's beautiful. All right, and the next one up that we have is Luke, right? So who's Luke and what's that all about, please?
Yeah. So what's interesting about Luke is in Paul's second missionary journey, Acts 16, we go from they to we. Now this is also written by Luke, the book of Acts, and so he was. Well, we know nothing about Luke because he doesn't talk about Luke and he doesn't talk about Luke in Acts or any place else. Paul refers to him as the beloved physician. He was supposed to be a doctor. And but he was really hung out with Paul a lot, and he was an elaborate, detailed writer. Both Luke and Acts are very good on details. So again, an educated man. Very elaborate Christmas story about 120 verses or something about the beginnings of of John the Baptist and Jesus, how that all got started, all the story of the angels, the born in the manger, all the details, just beautiful. Very, very important to us to have that. He also a very detailed yet very simple, clever man, knows how to make things simple to understand. Many parables. He loved the parables, more parables than in any of the Gospels. It's an excellent starter book. It's about a grade 3 level trying to understand. Really good to read to your kids. Of all the Gospels, by far the best, I believe, because it's simple and lots of detail and makes us all understand, and it's beautiful that way. And a good starter book for Christians, because it gives us a Christmas story and they can relate to that, and it's a simple writing, and so on. I really think that's the one. We use that for evangelism all the time, and I think it's the right book for that purpose. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I was just gonna actually state that too, right? I think it's a proper starting foundation, a book like if you meet someone on the street or just having a couple Gospels of Luke, it's nice and it's not as overwhelming as the whole Bible itself. And it's a good starting point where it covers all the bases of the life story of Jesus. But the final gospel that we have here is the Gospel of John. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the Gospel of John, John also was one of the disciples, known as the disciple that Jesus loved. He was a very thoughtful, kind person, it seems, and apparently this was written when he was an old man, and after many years of the harvest field, 60 years supposedly been preaching at this time, and he writes the Gospel of John. And what is so special about it is the theological detail. It is now my favorite gospel for myself, not what I give out to others, because I'm really interested in the theology of being born again, and Jesus lives in us, and how that we go from death to, as we are born twice, we only die once, and those kind of details, beautiful details there that we don't find in the other gospels. But it's heavy reading, but at my age and stage is where I really like to be. So he understood Jesus and loved the plan of God. It's a wonderful read, and but you have to go slow and think about it. It's heavy but beautiful. The other gospels don't give that kind of detail. Very special for theology, as I would call it. Your thoughts?
No, that's perfect. I think you explained that beautifully, and thank you for doing this for the comparison of the four gospels. And thanks a lot, Harry.
Yeah, thank you.